Sausage.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of First, the show where I, Marcus Nez, gives you my first impression on a game, and this here episode is all about Edge of Eternity, an epic turn-based action RPG. Not action RPG, because that would mean it's real-time, it's turn-based. And have you never played any of the Xenoblade Chronicles games? It reminds me a lot of those. As someone who is clearly an expert on those. But it is a turn-based RPG where you play a young soldier who is trying to, I presume, save the world in alternate. I don't think it's Earth. Nah, it's definitely not Earth because there's like giant cats and a lot of fantastical elements that maybe it's an alternate version of Earth. Doesn't matter. But at some point in your history in the game, alien creatures in giant metal spaceships came into your world with technology and powers that were beyond yours, and they were peaceful at first, I believe, and then they eventually were like, these fuckers are so beneath us, we're just going to destroy them. And they took over everyone, they destroyed much of the planet, much of the population, and now people are banding together. Everyone is coming together to try and stop them, to fight them off. But now, a new baddie has entered the fray. Not a new baddie, but the bad aliens have thrown into the recipe, the saucepan, this disease called corrosion, which turns people into monsters or some shit. It's got an uphill battle for me, Edge of Eternity, because I am not the biggest fan of turn-based combat. It is one of my least favorite combat systems in video games. So any game that has that has a lot to do in every other part of it. So the story, the characters, the world, all of that has to do a lot of heavy lifting in order to lift up the game where the combat won't, for me. And Edge of Eternity shows promise initially. It has two things going for it. Very, very good voice acting. The main character who you play is voiced by, I forget his name, but he's someone who's done a lot of work in anime. Stuff like Attack on Titan, Yuri on Ice, Fairy Tail, etc. So he's done a lot of stuff, and he does a great job with what I've played of Edge of Eternity. And also, the second thing this game has going for it is this creature, which I can't remember the name of, but it seems to be the main animal, the chocobo of Edge of Eternity, and it's basically just a giant cat, almost kitten-like cat with, I think, maybe a 3-split tail with blue tips and blue-tipped ears, and it's adorable, and it purrs and goes all the time, and I love those. You come across the farm very early on, and if this game was just about farming and raising those creatures, I would be all in. But it's not. And the problem with Edge of Eternity is the combat is incredibly boring and simple and dull. And I'm sure it'll expand over time. It's hard to really judge a turn-based combat system off the first hour and a half or so because they just want to get you a feel for the basics. But I'm not getting a lot of hope in me that the combat system will flesh out that much. There's hints that other factors will come into play, like the weather system and elements. So if it's raining, if you're in a rainstorm, the water will be affected by the weather, and then fire will take a hit when a rainstorm is happening, and so on and so forth. But what I played left me very, very underwhelmed. And part of it is because, a big part of it actually, is because the combat is so slow. There is a weird delay or something going on between every single action where you have to wait a few seconds for shit to actually play out. And then the animations themselves, what you've been waiting for, aren't that exciting. So combat is just this very, very dull thing to actually partake in from a interaction standpoint, and then it's even more dull to watch play out. So that doesn't help. And while the story shows potential early on, in large part because of the really good voice acting, not just from the main character, but from the entire cast, as soon as you get thrown into the world and are no longer hearing voice acting for every bit of dialogue and every bit of writing, the cracks come through and you see that the writing is actually not that great. When you have to read what's been written for this game, it's not the worst shit in the world or anything, but it's very, very generic, throwaway, who cares, I don't type of stuff. So without that great voice acting elevating the material, it's very bland and forgettable, like so much of the game. Look at the art overall is pretty good. I think the environments look pretty good. There's some fun character and creature design in it. The humans, though, all look a little shitty and really uninspired, and it just did nothing in those first few hours to grab me and make me want to play more. This is a perfect example of, especially this genre, where it can be really hard to judge it based off a first impression because they're so large, they're so expansive, they take dozens and dozens and dozens of hours, and it may take a good amount of time for things to get rolling, for you to get a handle of things, for the combat system to show its true colors and its true intricacies. But that doesn't matter. No type of game gets a pass or is allowed more freedom to waste one's time in order to get good. I am not going to spend 10 not great hours with a game so that I can get to the part where I actually enjoy playing it. That's not going to happen. I'm not going to do that. And I don't think anyone else should be expected to do that. Am I saying it takes 10 hours for Edge of Eternity to get great or even just good? No, because I don't know. I haven't played it for 10 hours and it may get good earlier than that, or it may never get good. But what I played didn't do anything to make me want to see if that happens or doesn't happen. And that is where I'll leave that, not to waste any more of your time with this here preview. Anywho, once again, I am Marcus Nez. Y'all can find me on Twitter and pretty much everywhere at PX Sausage. If you'd like to see me streaming games like Edge of Eternity, you can do so over on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, and all that jazz. That is twitch.tv/PX Sausage, Facebook/ do what to want to do, and youtube.com/pixelated sausage, which is where you're watching this video if you are watching the video and not just consuming, eating up that audio version. youtube.com/pixelated sausage. Like, subscribe, hit the bell, and all that jazz if you haven't already. Speaking of pixelated sausage, if you put a dot and a com after that, what do you got? You got my website where you can find more stuff like this, as well as the art I'm making. If you see some art you like, you can purchase a print of the piece you fancy. And if you fancy the site in general and anything that we do, please go over to patreon.com/pxs and support us that way. And by us, I mean me. And by me, I'm going bye-bye. So thank you for watching or listening. I hope you enjoyed this here episode, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. Bye!
I'm gonna take you down! Yeah!
Sindra. We need to go to the headquarters.
Regroup.
I know.
Then let's go. And keep an eye out for survivors.